Hey guys, and Happy New Year! Today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up, and just as a warning, 4 of these books that I read were Christmas-related books. So the one book that I read that wasn't Christmas was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and I'm going to talk about that one first, just in case you don't want to hear about all the cheesy Christmas romance books that I read in the month of December. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo is this fantasy heist with these bunch of criminals who've come together, but they are on a mission. And I don't really want to give away anything that really happens with their mission, because I think it's just something that you should read and have it unfold in front of you so you really get the enjoyment out of it. I will say I started this book in October, and it honestly took me about 3 tries to finally get into it. I just wasn't immediately sold on the characters and on the plot, and I just wasn't in the mood for this type of book. I didn't want to force myself to read Six of Crows because the only reason I picked it up was because I've heard nothing but great things about this book and this duology. I had it halfway read until this month, actually Boxing Day, the 26th. I picked it up again and I read it pretty much the whole rest of the book in one sitting, and I was completely hooked from that point on. And I think I also was hooked because where I had left off before was right as everything was really starting to happen about halfway through the book, and so I just had a blast finishing up the book. I think the characters were so wonderfully done. I loved reading all their backstories and every different perspective. There wasn't a perspective that we switched to that I was bummed about. I think what is great about this book too is that it is equally character driven as it is plot driven, and I find a lot of the times it's one or the other. Like, you have really great characters and that's kind of what the story is about, or you have a really great plot and the characters aren't like super developed. But I found that with Six of Crows, the characters were super well developed and the plot was like it was incredible. So would highly recommend this. I may be doing a discussion about this. If you're interested, let me know. Now going into the Christmas themed books, and I'm not going to talk about these books in the order that I read them. I'm going to talk about them in least favorite to my favorite Christmas book. Overall, I wasn't super blown away by any of these Christmas books, and I wish that I had been able to read more, but once I got some recommendations when I posted my Christmas TBR, I put holds on the books at the library, but there were, I swear, some of these books had like 70 holds, people ahead of me waiting to read this book, so I didn't get any of the books that I requested. Unfortunately, I was only able to read the books on my TBR and then one book that became available that I think I'd put on in October or November from the library. It finally came in a few days before Christmas. My least favorite Christmas book out of all the ones I read this month was Christmas in Eternity Springs by Emily March, and it's funny because this is the one that I actually ended up buying. Whatever. This book, it felt really dragged out. It's about this young woman who moves to this really quaint, small, cute town called Eternity Springs, and then there's this man and his son, and he meets this woman in this town, and eventually he moves to the town too, and it's like small town, like find yourself, heal, that kind of thing. But what was kind of annoying about this book, it was called Christmas in Eternity Springs, but the whole book was not even based in the month of December. The main character, girl, she does own a Forever Christmas shop, so it has definitely themes of Christmas, but I didn't really feel Christmassy while reading it. It also was just kind of boring. It dragged out a lot longer than any of the other Christmas books that I read. The other ones were like really short, really sweet. This one just like, it would not stop and it wasn't interesting enough. My third favorite book out of the bunch was The Perfect Christmas by Debbie Macomber. This book just, it was really quick of a read, but the characters I didn't really like. I did describe this plot briefly in my Christmas TBR, but there was a young woman and she's in her 30s and she's not married yet, she doesn't have a boyfriend, so she gets with this matchmaker to find her the perfect match, and he has her going on these Christmas related tasks to reveal who her perfect match is. The matchmaker was just completely unlikable. He felt like a robot, and I know he was supposed to kind of feel that way, but there wasn't even a point even at the end where I thought that there was a human inside of him. The story itself was okay, but it wasn't enough to make up for the bad character that she created. My second favorite book was Dashing Through the Snow. I think this one's by Debbie Macomber as well. So Dashing Through the Snow is also a Hallmark movie, which I did watch a little bit of, and I actually enjoyed this one okay. I think I gave it 3 or 4 stars. So it's a book involving a road trip, which is always really fun. They're traveling from somewhere in California, I can't remember where, if it's Los Angeles or San Francisco or something, and they're traveling to Seattle via car because they can't get any flights, and it's her and this like grumpy seeming young man, and they don't like each other at all. The one not so great part about this book, there was this FBI element to it that was just really stupid in my opinion. It felt completely lame and cheesy, like you're watching some really bad CSI episode. It didn't even resolve into anything significant, so it's like, why did we waste our time reading about this stupid, like, other part of this book when we could have just been reading about the road trip and it would have been fine in and of itself. The FBI agent, the main guy agent, was just a complete idiot, and he thought he was all that. He reminded me of Michael Scott from The Office, who just has this confidence that he knows exactly what he's talking about, but he actually is kind of an idiot the whole time. And my favorite book that I read in the month of December, Christmas related, was The 12 Days of Christmas by Debbie Macomber. There is this young woman who lives across the hall from this really grumpy guy, and she has a blog, and so she writes this blog, the 12 Days of Christmas are 12 days of kindness, and so she's going to treat him with kindness and just see what happens. What made this one better than the other Debbie Macomber book with this grumpy male character was that we actually saw this surly neighbor kind of soften towards her, and we saw that he did have a heart before the ending, and I appreciated that we saw that change in him before we just get to the last page and all of a sudden everything is perfect and we're like, how did we get here? It was just like complete crap a few seconds ago. So I think that the relationship developed pretty naturally. I think I gave this book 4 stars. Would recommend. My only complaint about it is I felt like I was being a little bit gypped because Debbie Macomber's book, The Perfect Christmas, had 2 very, very similar elements to it that I felt like I honestly was being tricked. Like she was using the exact same thing she done in Perfect Christmas that she did in the 12 Days of Christmas. And so because of that reason, it put me off a little bit that the author would do something like that. Felt like it wasn't really creative considering she basically rewrote the story in a different way. If you've read The Perfect Christmas and 12 Days of Christmas, you'll know what parts I'm talking about, but it was pretty much like verbatim scenes, and even the male characters were really, really similarly written. So for that, I couldn't give it 5 stars just because I felt like it was a little cheap that she would just basically copy her other book and put it in her new one. You know what I mean? Let me know what books you read in the month of December in the comments below. Thank you for watching and happy reading.